The chandeliers sparkled like diamonds above the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, casting shimmering reflections onto the polished marble floors. Manhattan's elite mingled beneath them, sipping champagne and exchanging market predictions at my father's 65th birthday gala. I weaved through the crowd dressed as a server, balancing a tray of drinks like I belonged in the background. That was how my family preferred me, silent, invisible, and most of all, forgettable. They didn't know that underneath the black server vest was a tailored Armani suit worth more than most of their monthly mortgages. Appearances mattered in the game I was about to win. At least make yourself useful, Alex, my brother Marcus sneered as he plucked a champagne flute from my tray. His Rolex glinted under the ballroom lights. Since you can't afford a proper gift with that startup salary of yours. If only he knew. If Marcus had the slightest clue that his precious hedge fund's recent surge in profitability was due to proprietary AI algorithms licensed, covertly, from my company, he might have choked on his Dom Perignon. The same company he'd mocked 3 years ago when I pitched the idea at a family dinner. Nova Technologies. The startup they all believed was my delusion had quietly grown into a $5 billion global tech empire. While they laughed, I built. I felt the phone buzz silently in my pocket. A message from my chief communications officer, disguised as a server like me, Forbes article ready for release. Nova Technologies public revelation scheduled for 8:30 p.m. Stock market alert will trigger simultaneously. I glanced up at the grand clock on the ballroom wall. 7:45 p.m. In exactly 45 minutes, the Morrison family would realize that the son they forced to serve drinks had just been named one of the youngest billionaires in tech history. Victoria's voice rang across the room like a chime dipped in acid. Table 3 needs refills, Alex. Try not to embarrass us more than your career already has. Her friends laughed politely, unaware that Table 3 was filled with Nova Technologies board members, expertly playing their roles for tonight's spectacle. Every insult she threw only made the twist more satisfying. My father sat at the main table, surrounded by executives, investors, and old friends. He looked confident, relaxed, the patriarch basking in the glow of a family empire built on legacy banking. No one had ever challenged the Morrison name. No one, until now. Mr. Morrison, a server whispered discreetly. It was my COO, disguised like the rest. Everything's in position. The screens, Forbes feed, market alerts, we go live at 8:30 on the dot. I gave a slight nod and moved back into the crowd. The same massive screens my father insisted on installing, usually used to broadcast Morrison Financial's performance, would now be used for a much more personal broadcast. And he had no idea. There's my practical son, my mother cooed when she spotted me. Darling, surely you can stop pretending to be a bartender and join the family photo. Of course, mother, I said with a smile, stepping into the shot, placing myself, as always, on the edge. They always put me there. The son who didn't fit. The one who never joined the family firm. The one who chased foolish dreams. By 8:25 p.m., the ballroom was abuzz with laughter, champagne, and polished small talk. The MC stepped onto the stage, tapping the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, as requested by our esteemed host, please direct your attention to the screens for a very special announcement from Forbes. I watched my father raise his glass, smiling, expecting some puff piece about Morrison Financial's latest accolade. He didn't even look at the screen at first. Then he heard the words. Breaking. Nova Technologies CEO revealed as Alexander Morrison. Tech prodigy's $5 billion empire emerges from stealth. Wall Street stunned by Morrison family connection. The glass froze mid-air. My father turned slowly, eyes narrowing at the headline flashing in bold red. In the stunned silence that followed, I stepped forward and pulled off the server vest. Underneath, the deep charcoal of my designer suit stood out starkly against the standard black uniform. I straightened my tie, walked calmly to the center of the ballroom, and picked up the microphone. Dad, I said, locking eyes with him. I think it's time we talked about my actual net worth. The room gasped. Guests clutched their phones as the news broke in real time. Screens updated with a flood of headlines. Alexander Morrison from server to tech titan. Nova Technologies reveals global reach. Morrison scion built $5 billion empire in secret. Marcus's voice cut through the room, higher pitched than usual. This has to be a mistake, Nova. That company's been buying up our competitors. I smiled. Yes, that was me. Every acquisition, every silent takeover. And the trading algorithms you use. The ones you brag about every Thanksgiving. Those were mine, too. The servers around the room subtly adjusted their posture. They weren't staff. They were my security detail, my C-suite executives, my team. The illusion shattered as the family slowly realized the truth. For those of you still catching up, I said into the mic, I'm Alexander Morrison, founder and CEO of Nova Technologies. You've probably used our AI financial systems, relied on our quantum trading platform, or benefited unknowingly from our predictive investment models. My mother stared at me, her pearls tight against her throat. But your apartment is the penthouse of a building I own, I finished. And those cocktails you had me serve at charity galas? That was market research. I learned more about your clients as a bartender than you ever did as their advisor. The ballroom, once filled with laughter, now stood frozen. Shock, horror, and beneath it all, a storm was coming. For a moment, no one spoke. Even the clinking of champagne glasses had ceased, replaced by the sharp intake of breath, the buzz of incoming notifications, and the unmistakable shift in power dynamics. I could feel the weight of 1,000 eyes on me, some wide with shock, others narrowing with the first flickers of envy and fear. My family, long accustomed to treating me like a background character in their high society drama, now struggled to comprehend the role reversal unfolding before them. Alexander Morrison, I said slowly, savoring the syllables as if I were introducing a stranger, founder and CEO of Nova Technologies. For the past decade, while you laughed at my so-called failed startup, I was building the most powerful AI trading company in the world. Victoria's investment banker husband had gone ghost white. He swayed slightly on his feet, glancing nervously at his phone as he began to realize that his firm's trading algorithms, those he had lauded for years, were built on my tech. Nova, that's your company. You're the one who acquired Solix Capital. Correct, I replied, watching his face fall. And Solix was your firm's largest competitor, wasn't it? Acquired last month for $640 million in cash and stock. My cash, my stock, my COO, still dressed in server black, moved beside me, tablet in hand. She tapped once, and the ballroom screens updated again. Now they displayed a cascading timeline of Nova's accomplishments, major hedge fund clients, silent partnerships, algorithm breakthroughs, and a graph showing our influence over 30% of global market volume. The crowd gasped. I turned back to my father, whose stunned silence had finally cracked into something resembling rage. He rose slowly from his seat, his voice trembling with disbelief. You deceived us, he said through gritted teeth. You lied. No, Dad, I simply didn't tell you everything. Isn't that how business works? You taught me that. I took a few steps forward. You told me to know my place. To be realistic. To stop chasing fantasies. Every time you assigned me drink duty at a gala, I was making connections with financial elites who respected results, not surnames. And every time you mocked me at dinner, I was implementing another phase of the technology that powers your success. You're nothing without the Morrison name. Marcus exploded, pushing forward. You'd be nobody without our reputation behind you. Funny, I said, because I built Nova anonymously. None of my clients knew I was a Morrison. I succeeded in spite of the name, not because of it. Security staff, now revealed as my executive protection team, began subtly shifting the crowd to make space. Reporters in the back scrambled to capture footage, their cameras focused on my family's disintegrating facade. Marcus fumbled for control. Then why now? Why humiliate us like this in public? Because timing is everything in finance, I replied. And I wanted the world to see what happens when merit is buried under arrogance. I gestured, and my CFO stepped forward, passing sleek leather portfolios to each family member. Inside, I said, you'll find detailed reports of every trade your companies have executed using Nova technology. You're welcome, by the way. Your profits, those came from the very algorithms you once dismissed as amateur coding. Victoria flipped through her folder, her mouth slowly opening in horror. You can't revoke access to the system. Our clients rely on. Too late, I said. Nova Technologies is terminating all partnerships with Morrison Financial effective midnight. You'll have to find new software, if anyone will sell to you. And without Nova's insights, your entire portfolio is about to go into freefall. My father looked like a man watching his legacy collapse in real time. You're punishing your own family for not believing in you. I'm holding you accountable, I corrected. For years of belittling, dismissing, and underestimating me. For treating me like a servant in rooms I now own. This isn't punishment, it's clarity. On the screens, new headlines flashed. Nova Technologies pulls out of Morrison Financial. Morrison family caught off guard by internal tech coup. Alexander Morrison seizes control of market access. The gasps in the room turned into murmurs of realization. Business partners were already pulling out phones, some whispering into Bluetooth headsets, canceling deals, or reaching out to Nova directly. Victoria stepped forward, her voice sugary and fake. Alex, listen, about all those things we said over the years. I raised my hand to stop her. Save it. You're welcome to apply for algorithm access like every other firm. But be prepared to explain your qualifications, outside of your last name. My mother looked as though she'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Alex, darling, surely we can work this out, as a family. I laughed, low and genuine. You always called me the disappointment. You paraded me around like help at your charity galas while Marcus got the press releases. You wanted me to earn my keep. Well, I did, and now you'll pay premium rates for everything I've built. The final update on the ballroom screen stole the rest of the breath from the room. Nova Technologies announces new pricing structure. Morrison Financial Accounts move to non-preferred tier. Alexander Morrison assumes industry leadership role. I raised my glass, my last as a server. And Dad, I said, turning to face the man who had defined my place at the edges for so long. Happy birthday. I hope you enjoy the party. Because from now on, this is my table. The reporters swarmed forward as the family tried to recover, but the story had already been written. The son they mocked had just replaced them at the top. The headlines lit up every phone in the ballroom. Nova Technologies stock had surged by 27% in the last 5 minutes. I could see traders in the room whispering urgently into their earpieces, eyes darting between me and the screens. A few guests, hedge fund managers and tech CEOs, had already stepped away from their tables, trying to salvage whatever business alliances they could. Marcus looked like someone had pulled the floor out from beneath him. You can't do this, he said, his voice loud enough to be heard across the ballroom. Cutting us off from Nova's systems. That's corporate suicide. It'll destroy everything we've built. I turned to him slowly, savoring the moment. What you built, Marcus? Really, the same portfolio that relied on my algorithms for the last 4 years. The trades you bragged about, every single one powered by Nova's predictive systems. He froze. And don't worry, I added with a smirk, your firm will survive. Just not in its current form. Maybe try rebranding as an analog consultancy. The crowd laughed, softly at first, but then louder as realization spread. My father stepped forward, voice cracking with fury. You're showing off. You're humiliating your own family to prove a point. No, Dad, I'm giving credit where credit is due, I said calmly. To myself. For the first time in my life. A ripple moved through the crowd as screens across the room now showed Nova's upcoming rollout. A revolutionary new trading interface, available exclusively to firms approved by Nova's internal merit board. No legacy preferences. No nepotism. Just results. The message couldn't be clearer. I turned back to my family. From now on, if you want access to my technology, you'll have to apply like everyone else. And good luck passing the vetting process. Security moved subtly as reporters stepped in closer. Someone from CNBC shouted, Mr. Morrison, how long have you operated under stealth? 10 years, I answered. Nova Technologies was built from my dorm room, then scaled through silent partnerships and shell entities. I wanted the product to speak for itself. No headlines, no distractions, just performance. Another reporter asked, why the dramatic reveal tonight? I let my eyes scan the room. Because tonight, I was once again asked to serve drinks at my own father's birthday party. I figured it was time to toast properly, with the truth. The room broke into light applause. Marcus growled something under his breath, pushing past a server and storming toward the exit. Victoria trailed behind, still clutching her leather-bound portfolio as if it were a life raft. My mother remained rooted in place, eyes glassy. She looked up at me and whispered, we didn't know. No, I said quietly. You never cared to ask. I stepped up to the podium, letting the cameras and eyes settle on me again. This was the moment, the one I had imagined every time I'd been dismissed at a dinner, laughed at during a board meeting, or overlooked at family gatherings. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, Nova Technologies is now open for direct partnerships. We will be prioritizing firms built on merit, innovation, and integrity. No more legacy bias. No more gatekeeping. We've spent the last decade building tools that outthink Wall Street. Now, we're opening the door to those ready to walk through it, on their own 2 feet. The final screen update rolled behind me. Nova Technologies to reshape Wall Street. Founder, Alexander Morrison promises new era of financial equality. I stepped down from the stage, the weight of a decade lifting off my shoulders. The serving vest I'd worn as camouflage now lay folded over a chair. The Armani suit underneath fit perfectly, tailored not just to my body, but to my role, one I had earned, not inherited. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashing. But I kept walking. My executive team, disguised all night as bartenders, servers, and assistants, fell into step beside me. Each one had been carefully chosen. Some were prodigies, some were overlooked geniuses. All of them knew what it meant to be underestimated. James, the bartender who had once helped me sneak into financial panels while pretending to refill drinks, met me near the ballroom exit with a smile. "You did it, Mr. Morrison." "No," I said with a quiet smile. "We did." He handed me a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "To the kid who served drinks while building an empire. The bar's yours now. Cheers, James." Outside the plaza, the Manhattan skyline glowed like an empire reborn. I stepped into the Nova Technologies limo, sleek and matte black, waiting at the curb. As we drove through Wall Street, I looked out at the buildings that had once symbolized my exclusion, names etched in stone that I now had the power to disrupt. And the best part, they still hadn't seen the full plan. The next morning, the financial world woke to chaos and clarity. Nova Technologies' logo was now projected across every major business outlet. Headlines dominated the airwaves. Server turned titan. Alexander Morrison disrupts Wall Street overnight. Nova shocks global markets. Access restricted to merit-based firms only. Morrison Financial collapses 14% as Nova access revoked. I stood in the glass-walled corner office of Nova's Manhattan headquarters, coffee in hand, watching Wall Street adjust to the new power structure. Below me, traders darted through revolving doors, some wearing the same desperate expressions I once wore while balancing champagne flutes for my father's guests. Funny how fast the tides turn. "Mr. Morrison," my assistant said, stepping into the office, "Marcus Morrison is demanding to speak with you. He says it's urgent." I didn't look away from the skyline. Let him wait 10 minutes. He used to make me wait hours. At exactly 9:10 a.m., Marcus barged into the room, his tailored suit wrinkled, collar loose, and eyes frantic. "Alex, we need to talk. The hedge fund is hemorrhaging. Half-hour trades are stalled. Our main clients are threatening to walk." I took a long sip of my coffee. Should have invested in innovation instead of ego. He slapped a folder on my desk. "This isn't funny. You're sabotaging your own family." "I'm upgrading the financial system," I replied coolly. "If you want to be part of the future, submit a partnership application like everyone else. You'll be vetted fairly." "Fairly," he barked. "You're replacing our team with algorithms. People will lose their jobs." I set the coffee down and walked to the screen on my wall. A few gestures brought up live dashboards of Nova's impact. One chart showed Nova Tech AI processing trades at 400% the speed of legacy systems. Another displayed client satisfaction ratings, all in the green. "You think I'm replacing people?" I said. "I'm replacing complacency, nepotism, arrogance. You had every chance to evolve. You mocked mine instead." The door opened again. Victoria. Her heels clicked against the marble floor like punctuation marks. Her face was pale, her lipstick faded, but she held herself with that same faux poise she'd always weaponized at family events. "Alex," she said softly. "I lost 3 clients this morning. They pulled their assets the moment they found out I no longer had access to Nova's backend systems. I didn't know they were using your platform." I raised an eyebrow. "You didn't care to ask." She moved closer. "You've made your point. You're not the failure we thought. Congratulations. But this war against the family. It's not a war," I interrupted, "it's accountability." She faltered. "I spent 10 years being laughed at over turkey dinners," I continued. "Serving drinks while you all discussed finance like I didn't understand it. You told your friends I was still finding myself. All the while, my algorithms were fueling the very trades you bragged about." Marcus scoffed. "You're acting like we didn't try to help you. You didn't try. You told me what to do, who to be, where I belonged," I said sharply. "And when I didn't obey, you reduced me to a joke." I tapped a button. A video clip played on the screen, a family Christmas dinner from 5 years ago. I was in the background, laptop open, headphones on, while Marcus loudly mocked me for still playing with startup dreams. The room had laughed. I had smiled politely. Victoria turned away. "That night," I said, "I finalized the code that now controls 30% of global trading infrastructure. Silence. Then a soft knock. My father. His iconic presence once filled boardrooms. But now, without the polished bravado, he looked small. He stepped in slowly, as if unsure of his welcome. Alexander, he began. I didn't invite him to sit. He looked around the office, the same one he used to say I'd never earn. You've made quite an impact, he said. I underestimated you. I let him squirm. I wanted to build something bigger than legacy, I said. Nova isn't just a company. It's proof that merit matters more than bloodlines. And the world is responding. Your firm's board called this morning. They want me to lead the recovery effort. As an advisor. He flinched. They'd never accept. They already did. In fact, they voted. Unanimously. I dropped a file onto the table. In this document, I said, you'll find a restructuring plan for Morrison Financial. Nova will oversee all operations. You'll step down, effective immediately. His jaw tightened. You're cutting me out of my own company. No, I said, you handed it to me when you decided I wasn't worthy of your name. He stared at the folder. And what happens to us now? I smiled. You'll work for Nova. He looked stunned. Starting as a junior data compliance analyst, I added. It's honest work. I should know. I've done it in a tux with a tray in hand. Victoria gasped. Marcus turned beet red. My father looked like he might collapse. But it was done. Nova had absorbed Morrison Financial, and with it, dismantled a dynasty built on pride and exclusion. And now it was time to show the world what innovation really looked like. The Nova Technologies headquarters hummed with quiet precision. No shouting traders. No ego-fueled desk slamming. Just data flowing, decisions being made, and the future of finance being written by lines of code and meritocratic minds. I stood in my office, the top floor of the building that once hosted Morrison Financial's most exclusive events. Today, it belonged entirely to Nova. And so did the market. The news cycle hadn't slowed. Alexander Morrison restructures Wall Street power dynamics. Former family firm absorbed into Nova Technologies. The server who took over the system. I poured a glass of that same vintage champagne I once served to guests who never learned my name. Now, it sat chilled in my private office, next to a limited edition bottle engraved with the Nova crest, gifted to me by a consortium of global investors after last night's reveal. There was a soft knock. It was James, the bartender. Who'd always treated me like a human when no one else did. You wanted an update? He asked, stepping in with the easy confidence of a man who now led Nova's hospitality and corporate culture division. I nodded. He handed me a sleek black folder. Victoria's client base has dropped another 60%. She tried reaching out to two of our competitors. Both declined after realizing she no longer has Nova access. I smiled. Did she get the message from legal? Yes. Her fund is being flagged for a retroactive audit. The moment she mocked my little tech startup 3 years ago, she unwittingly signed a clause that ties her performance to our algorithm license. He chuckled. Your brother fired, I said. His top 3 investors pulled out by noon. One of them is now partnering directly with us for Nova's quantum trading expansion. And your father, still resisting. I turned to the window. But he knows. Everyone does now. His world changed overnight. James placed a new chart on the table, global asset allocation. Nova Technologies had become the backbone of 32% of real-time market trades in under 24 hours. The firm's valuation surged past $6.3 billion. Want me to call in the transition team? James asked. No, I said, let them come to us. He nodded and left quietly. By late afternoon, my father finally returned. He wore no suit this time. Just a navy blazer and slacks, like a man preparing to ask for a job. Behind him trailed 2 senior partners from his former board, now Nova consultants. I reviewed the documents, he said, voice low. You're positioning Nova not just as a tech firm. You're turning it into the central nervous system of global finance. I'm positioning Nova as a filter, I said. For competence, integrity, talent, things you once told me I lacked. He exhaled heavily. What do you want from me? I turned fully to face him. You once made me serve drinks while global bankers laughed at me. You told me tech was a side hustle. You said I wasn't a Morrison. He flinched. I want you to work, I said. Not for me, for the values you claim to teach. I tossed him a Nova badge. Level 1. Risk analysis. Entry position. 3-month probation. He caught it instinctively. You'll be trained by people half your age. You'll start from the bottom. And maybe, if you're good, you'll understand the future you nearly cost us. He looked at the badge, then back at me. You'd really make me do that? No, I said, I'm offering you the chance. Just like I wish someone had offered me when I was serving drinks. He hesitated. Then slowly, he nodded. Fine, I'll earn it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Nova's restructuring of Morrison Financial was hailed as one of the most graceful hostile takeovers in modern history. I sat across from CNBC anchors, Forbes editors, and market analysts, all of whom now saw me not as the waiter at billionaire parties but as the architect behind the software that powered them. Victoria tried one last time to get back in. I can help rebrand Nova's image. I know the high net worth market. You need optics. We have optics, I said. They're called numbers. Marcus filed a lawsuit. We countersued with full documentation of how he'd misused Nova algorithms for personal bonuses. He settled within 3 days and vanished from media. And my mother, she sent a single text after the dust settled. We didn't know. We should have. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. Not out of spite. Out of peace. 6 months later, Nova Technologies launched Nova Core AI, a self-adjusting trading infrastructure that eliminated market bias and prioritized underfunded global entrepreneurs. For the first time, investors in Nairobi and Jakarta had the same predictive edge as those on Wall Street. The press called it the financial equalizer. I called it justice. 1 year later, I returned to the Plaza Hotel. Same ballroom, different event. Nova's annual gala. This time, I wasn't behind the bar. I stood center stage, Armani tailored to perfection, the room buzzing with leaders who once ignored me. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, when I served drinks here, I heard everything you didn't say directly to me, but everything I needed to build this. The screen behind me lit up. Nova Technologies, redefining global finance. From bartender to billionaire, I raised my glass. To everyone who ever underestimated someone just because they didn't wear a suit. We didn't just build a company, we built a message. And tonight, the world is listening. Applause roared, and I smiled, not for revenge anymore, but for the truth, that the boy who once served drinks now owned the system that poured them.